Since 1881, Iittala has been a pioneering force in artistic and artisanal glassmaking, and it's a legacy the Finnish heritage brand is continuing under the creative direction of Jani Vepsäläinen, a direction you can hear more about in a special episode of Monocle on Design. Called New Directions with Iittala, the special broadcast unpacks the brand's workmanship and looks at how it bridges the gap between its history and today. Tune in for some essential discussion on craft, culture and creativity, wherever you get your podcasts. Monocle on Design, brought to you by Iittala.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and fashion. On today's program, it's a London Design Festival wrap. We traverse the city to share some of our highlights from this year's edition. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program. I'm Nick Manise and I'm not in the studio on my own today, which is nice. And I feel like this is a running theme. Grace Charlton's here with me, Monocle's Associate Editor.
Hello.
Hello, Grace Charlton. And Maylee Evans behind the glass, making sure that we behave ourselves.
I'm doing my best.
And we've all kind of been out and about constantly over the last few weeks. If you listened to last week's episode, Grace has kept things rolling from Fashion Week into London Design Festival. And Maylee and I have joined you. But Grace, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a little run down. I think my vocal cords are feeling the burn from 2 weeks out on the town. But it was fun, and it was really nice to actually combine fashion and then design and see how both add to the fabric that is London.
This rich, rich tapestry that is the city that we call home. I mean, tell us a little bit about how the two work together. Did you see any themes, I guess, kind of emerge, from Fashion Week flowing into London Design Festival? Was there any, I guess, golden threads you can pull?
Definitely. I think London maybe isn't as prestigious as Milan, both in terms of the Fashion Week and Salone del Mobile, but we've got spirit, we've got edge, we've got cool schools, we've got good ideas, we've got enthusiasm, and who knows where exactly we'll be going, but we're trying our best.
I think you're right. It does feel a little bit more experimental. I think that's partly maybe because there's not like a big grand trade fair component. I mean, some of the things that we saw, we dipped into Material Matters together, which is a showcase of materials that matter or are going to matter, and they're people experimenting and toying with things. I mean, was there anything there that jumped out at you in the 5 floors that we traversed?
The construction reuse of materials, I thought that was really interesting because it is such a polluting industry. So how we can...
30% of greenhouse gases come from the construction industry and materiality. Yeah.
Oh
I learned, this is a perfect segue. I feel like you've set me up very, very nicely for this. As part of London Design Festival, there's this big global design forum which is run at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and it's sort of a host of different panels and coming together to have discussions. I was lucky enough to chair one on breathing easy in the city, so looking at, I guess, how we can reduce pollution, but another one with the team from Diageo, who have developed the world's lightest 75 centilitre Scotch whisky bottle for Johnny Walker, which is a little bit, I guess, maybe a little bit unexpected. But what I quite liked about it was about playing with materiality and looking at glass and the fact that this is something that can be readily recycled. But what was quite fun was that they weren't driven necessarily by sustainability. They were just driven by, I guess, a desire for good design. Let's hear from Jeremy Linley, Diageo's Global Design Director.
When we talk about design in Diageo, we talk about truth, beauty and ideas. So at the heart of it is we're telling the stories of our brands. There's all of these incredible truths that we're trying to express. That leads you to an idea, and people, will always try and house a great design in an idea. But beauty, and that because we respond to that. It's an amazing category to work in. When we get together with our friends, when we celebrate, we quite often have a drink. And
it sounds like a hard job. It sounds like
reflecting that mindset. So truth, beauty and ideas, that's at the heart of our design.
That was Jeremy Linley, Diageo's Global Design Director. And what I liked from that little snippet, Grace, was it's about, I guess, telling a story first and foremost. But I mean, what were some of the best stories that you got most excited about? What were some of the products that grabbed you over the course of the week?
We met this Australian duo called Ready, based in Sydney in Surrey Hills, which is one of the nicest areas of the city. They use Indonesian wood. So this couple, Caroline and Andrew, they work with manufacturers in Indonesia to make really beautiful chairs and shelves. They look very mid-century, but a little bit modern as well. I think there's something of a Viennese secession kind of look to these pieces. And we got to meet them in person, and this is why you go to fairs and events and exhibitions, is to see people face to face and talk to them. And it was really nice to serendipitously meet them.
And I think a really nice part of that as well is that they were looking at using recycled or discarded teak wood as well. So there's that materiality theme that continues through it. Mainly a favourite story, a design story from the week. What got you fired up?
I spent a fair bit of time at the V&A, and actually it was really lovely to see some of the designers we've actually featured on the show. Modular by Menza, these beautiful leather pieces. Giles Tetenate, who also had a piece, this massive table. For me, it was almost like a bit of a homecoming, getting to see some of the old favourites and people who have gone on and made some more beautiful projects and are getting the kudos and the recognition that they deserve.
And we're going to hear from some of the people that we spoke to over the course of the week. Maylee, I think we'll kick it off with you. You caught up with Stefan Dietz from Dietz Office, and he was part of, I guess, one of the festival's big commissions, which also featured in our Monocle Minute on Design newsletter, which Grace and I edit. Well worth subscribing to if you haven't already. And you can see images of it there as well. So that's the little plug. But, I mean, tell us a little bit about the Vert Pavilion.
Yes, so this is a pavilion that was in the grounds of the Chelsea College of Arts, and it was sort of like an experiment. If you imagine a hot summer's day surrounded by concrete and tarmac, it feels pretty warm. And so one suggestion is you want to plant things, you want to have some trees around, which might not be a possibility. So this is looking at ways of how to green an area, but also in a way that works with the existing infrastructure rather than bringing lots of things that actually congest a road and mean that cars and bikes can no longer use that space. So it's kind of looking at a possibility. We sort of had these big red oak massive pieces made into like a lovely pavilion. There was some seating, you could swing. Everybody knew exactly how to use it without being told or being worried, maybe getting in the way or too precious whether they could get involved. And so I thought it was a really lovely example of design that feels practical and very inviting.
And then this was clad with, I guess, wires that greenery was growing up.
Exactly that.
That was perhaps kind of the key thing to this, is showing that you can have a structure that you can also invite greenery into it. If these plants were to grow out over the course of the summer, they were saying it could drop the immediate microclimate by several degrees. So I think that's why it's significant. Let's hear from Stefan Dietz now.
What we did here is a structural experiment. We created a quite big spatial structure in the yard of the Chelsea Art School, which we have fixed nets. On these nets are fast climbing plants which are creating a kind of I think beautiful atmosphere, but especially they create shadow and they cool down. So we envision this structure to be part of a future infrastructure in the city. Some are overlaying, let's say, car parking, bicycle lanes, even streets, whatever. We are creating a layer on top of that. And on that layer, we are growing plants which are growing from, let's say, April to August, around 10 meters high, and creating a huge amount of biomass and vaporizing a significant amount of water. And this vaporization is cooling the cities down. And that's something what we need in a big scale in the cities, Central European cities of the future, south, of course, as well.
This is one experiment. You're seeing it for the first time, I suppose. Even you seem a bit taken aback by it. But what are you enjoying actually seeing this? What are maybe some of the learnings?
We did the first experiment we did last year in Frankfurt, and we figured out that our biggest problem is to create a structure which is withstanding the wind load. On our first experiment, I was a bit disappointed by the amount of material that we were using, like implementing steel and concrete. And these materials are, of course, contradictory to our goals, because we want to be carbon neutral or carbon positive with this project. So we want to not only create shadow and create a pleasant atmosphere for the dwellers, but we also want to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. And that's why I really grabbed this opportunity offered to collaborate with the AHAC, American Hardwood Export Council. We are using red oak. It's a beautiful material. It's significantly stronger than pine wood. And so this helped us to create the structure entirely out of wood. Of course, there's a lot of materials that we can use. For instance, bamboo, or working with elastic materials that could be interesting. We are considering this. But we have in Europe a very well-working industry that knows how to work with this material. They can learn how to glue red oak, and we're using these experiments to figure out how long-lasting these structures will be, how resilient is the glue lamp, in our weather conditions. Nobody has done this in this scale before, so we need to start it. That's right, it's experimental. It's a one-off. For sure the next will look different, and we are now focusing also on facade greening. This is like basically our big project that we are working on right now.
That was Stefan Dietz. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tune in to Monocle on Culture, where we grill our panel of critics to get the inside line on the best in the world of film, music, art, literature and more.
It's just got this synth section that kind of makes you want to swing through the saloon doors straight to the dance floor.
With industry insiders and the odd bit of reportage too, it's bound to keep the most discerning of culture vultures very well fed.
Why'd You Come In Here Looking Like That is a song that is absolutely going to make you want to put on a pair of tight jeans and go boot scooting, even if it's just in your front room.
Monocle on Culture, premiering Mondays at 2000 London time and available thereafter wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, Grace Charlton, we're going to throw over to you now. I know in amongst all the cocktail parties that we were forced to go to for networking and commercial reasons, you also did do some actual serious reporting.
I power walked my way to the Techno Gym showroom on Piccadilly. It was looking very sleek. I do like what they do. As someone who does enjoy working on their obliques and biceps, I've always appreciated Techno Gym for what they do and the sort of design lens they put on their dumbbells. They're celebrating 40 years at this year. They unveiled all these different interpretations of benches when we were in Milan during Salone, but it's now coming to an end. They're auctioning off some of these pieces. And it got big designers involved. They got Lissoni, Kelly Hoppen. I spoke to Miles Igwebuike, who's a London-based designer. He taps into his Nigerian heritage and his practice. He's not only a designer, he's also a diplomat, which I think brings a nice added dimension.
I like this. I think we need more designers in these decision-making positions. What's his diplomatic role?
Well, he works with the World Economic Forum and he organises like different youth summits and events. And he, in his practice, looks at how to bridge these two areas and how to promote like cultural heritage through design. And so he designed this bench for Techno Gym, and it's like vivid orange, which I know is your favourite colour, Nick.
It is my favourite colour. I have a little photo series on my phone with orange cars and vehicles.
Yeah.
But maybe this orange bench could also be added to that.
I mean, it could be yours if you... I don't know how much it's going to go for at the auction, but it's actually taking place today, as in Tuesday, 24th of September. So this bench has these Igbo drawings on them, and he's called it Ukara, and it's really beautiful. So let's hear from him now.
I'm a researcher, and a lot of my work is looking at indigenous craftsmanship and also looking at anthropology within the southeastern part of Nigeria. To be able to manifest this research through painting an object and using an object as a canvas was extremely amazing. The title of the bench is called Ukara. And Ukara is the fabric worn by a special sect of men called the Ekpe Secret Society within the southeastern part of Nigeria. Yes, so what I was doing was, one, my research, but two, looking at what if this bench was actually a reimagined fabric, hence canvas, right? And if I was to reimagine Nsibidi, which is the most ancient numerical system of writing within the southeastern part of Nigeria, which is also inscribed on this fabric that the Ekpe men wear, what would that look like today in the 21st century, with all my lived experiences? And it was a beautiful process of exploration, number one, just delving into the numerical systems, the origins, the different influences across the southeastern part of Nigeria, and also looking at how other people have interpreted these systems. There was a lot of introspection and looking at how do I feel when I'm researching, how do I feel when I'm also looking at these artifacts and these cultural signifiers. And I think I was able to kind of depict that with my work, hence using the color. The color was very important because I'm a fencer, but I go to the gym. Equipment, it can be a bit daunting and mundane. I was thinking, what could be a really good visual stimulating color for me to make people drawn to the bench or make people drawn to moving their body in a really dynamic way, hence using this fluorescent tangerine color and also the fluorescent pink. I went to design school. I went to the Royal College of Arts, and in design school they teach you that you're meant to solve a problem. right? In this case, I didn't think there was a problem. I was just like, what if I'm able to provide another solution? Hence, evoking this really beautiful combination of colors to stimulate, and then also looking at the deep blue to pay homage to the actual indigo colors used in the actual fabric of Okara by the Ekpe Men Society in Nigeria.
Am I right in thinking the graphic design it's got symbolism to it?
Yes,
Yeah.
so that was reimagined Insipidi. The symbolism that I drew out on the bench was basically my own interpretation of Insipidi, and I was reimagining what this numerical system would look like in the 21st century, and also done with someone and also created by someone who has a type of lived experience that I have, being born in the US, live in Nigeria, based in London, and in wider Europe. So what does that look like when I also understand that cultural heritage is my core and anthropology is a vehicle in which I use to explore modernity? So those were all the different things I took into account.
You're a diplomat as well.
Yes.
How does this inform your practice? It's a very interesting sort of dual job.
The month before I got this call for the Technogym bench, I literally led a delegation to India for the inaugural India-Nigeria Youth Bridge, looking at geopolitics and maritime. And I remember sitting in like this really interesting focus group with a bunch of young Indians and Nigerians, and we're just talking about social issues and also cultural interrelations and also differences. And I remember now going back to my studio after that trip and realizing that, oh wow, like these things actually do influence my practice, how I've been able to navigate the world of diplomacy through my work by building community, hence being soft diplomacy, right? I've been so blessed and I've been so fortunate and privileged to have lived around the world. And the only thing that I resonate with and the only thing I believe that's on my core is my cultural heritage, and I wanted to kind of pay homage to that in everything that I do, down to the name of my studio, being in Teja. So that was me paying homage to my roots and to my actual core bloodline.
That was Miles Igwebuike. So, Nick, you spoke to a Design Innovation Medal winner. Tell us more about that.
So the London Design Festival runs the London Design Medal, one of the country's most prestigious design awards. It's looking at everyone from, lifetime achievement through to emerging designers. But the one I usually like the most, the one I'm most drawn to, is the Design Innovation Medal, because I think these are the people and the practices that I guess are, as the name suggests, pushing design disciplines forward. And I was lucky enough to speak to Natsai Audrey Chieza, who won this year's Design Innovation Medal. She established Faber Futures, a design agency that aims to bridge the gap between design and biotechnology. To be honest, I was trying to sort of wrap my head around exactly what this means. I mean, it's all quite, I guess, high level.
Yeah, a bit intellectual.
A little bit too much for me. And we know I like things simplified and very accessible. And so I had her into the studio to unpack her practice a little bit, explain why this work is important.
I have a background in architecture and in material futures, and somehow I ended up working in biotechnology. It took me a really long time to acknowledge my architectural background, because I was definitely moving away from that by the time I was designing in synthetic biology labs. But now I come to understand my practice as actually being very rooted in the fundamentals of that architectural education, which is really about trying to work within systems to create something new, to architect that new possibility. And I'm learning through my practice that we're doing the exact same thing, just with biology and the economies of people, the ecosystem that entails. It's not quite architecture in the traditional sense, but we are building new systems for the bioeconomy. Faber Futures is design-led, very curious about technologies and how they work together to bring the best of innovation to bear. We want to see these solutions live in the real world at scale and provide the benefits that they promise. And we recognize that to be able to do that, there needs to be a lot of joined-up thinking. When I founded the company, it was 2018. I had been at it since 2010. So it was a consolidation of that practice, of the networks that I'd built, understanding the market need actually for design to be upstreamed into the technological development rather than seen as marketing for a bioproduct some faceless, nameless biotech company has made. And it came out of really understanding the value that design could embed within a very nascent industry that was building from scratch. I mean, how exciting is that? We're not trying to convince people that, hey, you should pay attention to design. People are building from scratch, and it's like, who needs to be at the table? And it was the right time for us to work with some of the leading companies in the world who are building the platform technologies to be able to unlock this potential.
What are the different applications for the work that you're doing?
Applications are really wide, and all of the possibilities of biology, whether you're a policymaker or an institution that wants to think about funding in the space. If you can't see what it means, then it's very nebulous and it's extremely abstract. And so we collaborated with a company called Ginkgo Bioworks that's based in the United States, and they incubated Normal Phenomena of Life, which is a lifestyle brand that retails products made with biology. When we started the project, the products didn't exist. So it was like a two-pronged approach, is build a brand that tells this very powerful story about what's coming, and go make the products, which is a function of building whole new supply chains with the values that we care about. Is this ethical production, for example? Is it sustainable? How do we measure that? How do we communicate that? The Exploring jacket, which is leveraging our own technology with microbial dyes. And so it's a beautiful silk smock that's dyed with microbes. We've just launched the Gathering lamp, which I'm extremely excited about. A desk lamp that's made with a bioconcrete. And that bioconcrete is created by a microorganism that knows how to turn sand into stone. For the built environment, it's a massive game changer in terms of divesting from a very carbon-emitting material that is concrete. But we wanted to be able to take that material outside of the built environment conversation to very quickly put it in front of people in a tangible format that could tell the same story. We've collaborated with Mito Monday to create not just a lamp that's made with this gorgeous material, but one that is designed for disassembly. And so what we're really pushing on right now is, and it's taken a long time to get to a place where we can say, hey, look, it's not going to be good enough to just have the good materials. No shade on all of the hard work that it takes to get there. But that now we have to think about circular biodesign. And that's exciting because designers who traditionally didn't see themselves under this kind of biodesign rubric are suddenly very interested in bringing their own expertise into it. And that's what we need to see more of. Normal Phenomena of Life is this amazing space to not just discover these new products that we're bringing to market, along with curated products from other people who are also developing their own. It's our lab, it's our place where we get to really collaborate with a range of different stakeholders to do things that are harder to do if you're an incumbent. It's hard if you've been going for 100 years to tell your luxury consumer that you have a new material. You're really proud of where it's at. But if you partner with us, then we are biodesign first. We're not trying to convince somebody who has certain expectations around design and how these materials behave. We have our own community, and that's a really amazing context to start to prototype the hell out of these new materials.
That was Natsai Audrey Chieza, and we'll be right back after this.
For a celebration of all things print, tune in to The Stack, featuring expert analysis, the view of magazine veterans, and a look at what's flying off newsstands around the world.
This is very unique, to be able to buy a magazine and to find that many doors which you can open and that lead you into very different worlds.
Listen to The Stack and hear Fernando Augusto Pacheco in conversation with our favorite editors. The Stack airs every Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Make it part of your must-listen lineup, live or on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Finally, over to you, Mei Lee. You've been doing some crate digging. What's that got to do with LDF?
Yes, I went over to Kindred, that's a record shop over in Clerkenwell, because they had an exhibition on with Design Everything, which is a collaborative platform aiming at sort of getting emerging designers a chance to make something for real-world clients. The whole group was curated by Lewis Duckworth, who's also got a piece in the group show. But essentially Kindred, so it's a beautiful record shop in the heart of town, they came up with a list of items and objects that would be really helpful to have in this store. And that ranged from display tables, like a vinyl listening station, an ashtray, a vase. We've got an outdoor bench. The shop is on a slight slope, and so that takes that into account. So some wonderful sort of pieces there. And from that point onwards, designers had free reign and they could do whatever they wanted after visiting the shop, getting a sense of the space, the character, and then being let loose.
Catering to a host of different audiences. I mean, they've got ashtrays for Grace, they've got record players for me. I think it's quite nice and quite wholesome.
It is, but what I loved is that all of these items, they're on sale in the shop, but all of these pieces are going to stay in the shop. They're part of the furniture. They are the furniture.
And I think this is a beautiful, I guess, point to end this sort of show on with this final interview with Scarlett Griffith, who was co-founder of Kindred. It's the idea that designers create a lot of things or develop a lot of concepts for design festivals, but sometimes I guess they sort of disappear once the event leaves town. But this is actually something tangible that people are going to be able to hang on to. So let's hear your conversation with Scarlett Griffith now.
Kindred's been running now for 4 years. We made a list of objects that were really useful to us, and they were things that we use on a daily and also the public get to use. The designers got to pick what they wanted to make and make to a material cost that we offered. It was pretty explorative. We wanted to make sure that they were things that were being used. A listening deck to listen to records in the shop, the table that we show books on, chairs that we sit on, bench outside, A-boards. So there's like a lot of objects that were involved in this, but everyone's made like quite different but amazing objects that fit like really well in the space. When we first opened, we actually managed to find these quite amazing wooden floorboards that we use to make what we hold all the records in. And so there's always been like a quite, personally just for our tastes, like metal and wood combined, a lot of perforated aluminium and darker woods, and I think people naturally just responded to that and those palettes. That's why everything feels quite cohesive. I do think that's due to like people spending time in the space before they made, which I think was so important to the project.
The other thing to mention is that these items are available for purchase.
All of the objects available to be ordered. So if you come to the shop and you see anything you like, you can do that through us or through the artists. The bigger objects will be here now forever. So for people that want to come and see the show, there's not a timeline to it. This is like a completely active brief. You can come in a year and it will still be loving everything that's in it. So it will still be present.
In terms of, I guess, evolving this space, how has it impacted how you want to continue curating this space and help it grow going forward?
Because we are quite a small shop, we've always been quite like focused on like the design and like making most of like all of the surfaces. Moving forward, I mean, it's just such a privilege to have these young designers and just being able to showcase them now and kind of forever, which is, super important. There's a lot of design shows you go to and they're really quite amazing but grand objects, and I think making things that people can touch and people can use, all of the objects are in use in the space. We've got record dividers that are like already being used, so I think getting rid of that like preciousness around objects, not like archiving them, and just things aren't going to waste as well.
During that process, did you have much in the way of a back and forth, or was it a bit of a surprise when all these objects started arriving?
Honestly, it was like Christmas. People would just be dropping things off. Me, like Jojo and Lewis, would kind of like open them together. I think there was a moment when we were a little bit worried about things coming together, but then it just naturally all did.
That was Scarlett Griffith, co-founder of Kindred, and I think that brings us to the end of today's show. So final wrap, thoughts, Grace?
A lot of fantastic cocktail parties, and honestly, I don't think you can underestimate the power of getting people together in a showroom to sit on beautiful sofas and chat to each other and network. That was one of my highlights, and to experience it with you, Nick, and see your dance moves being brought out on the D floor of the Design Museum.
I am partial to a boogie, and I think you are onto something there. And I think it's the whole idea of these moments of serendipity that emerge when you wander into a building called Wax, not really sure what's going on in there, only to discover that there's a group of brands have come together, Minimalux showcasing their lights, Tamart also presenting these 1960s archival designs that they've revived. And you probably wouldn't have had an opportunity to do that had you not been, I guess, invited for a little bit of a boogie and a cocktail during London Design Festival. That is all for today's show. For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays. And if you enjoy print, then do pick up a copy of Monocle magazine as well. It's on all good newsstands now. Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans. It was co-hosted by Grace Charlton. I'm Nick Manise, and you can reach me on nm@monocle.com. Thanks for listening.